I spoke English at home, but I did Spanish from like early and did it as a degree, worked in a Spanish speaking church. And in that church, the parents primarily spoke Spanish, but the teenagers primarily spoke English. And I was the youth worker. So we started doing worship bilingually because their experience of growing up in a Spanish church, a Spanish speaking church, was that like God spoke Spanish and school was English. And there was this weird dichotomy. So to be able to worship bilingually allowed them to bring all of themselves. I think it was also helpful to bridge the gap between the generations. So they had religious language in Spanish and in English.
Yeah.
Because if you did it at school, those aren't the words you would learn. Like I remember doing French in school and then going to a Haitian church and going, oh, I don't actually have this vocabulary. We didn't learn how to say Holy Spirit in French
Yeah,
class, you know?
I should do that.
And even like prayer words, the way that people phrase prayers is not the way you talk normally. So I think there's something about doing things bilingually that equips that younger generation to bridge back and communicate with their elders or other generations.
I think we were very keen to express what it means to be an intercultural church through our worship service. So I would say that you can do that in the worship service, but also in like times of fellowship as well, and times, outside of the church. But within the church service itself, we did pay attention to having multilingual songs. For example, there's this song called Multilingual Grace by Proskeneo, where we sing thank you in various languages. We also made it possible for people to pray in different languages if they want. And actually something really interesting that I learned was being able to demonstrate what we mean. So I remember there was a time where we said, oh, okay, we're going to, because it's quite a small church, so we're like, oh, feel free to pray out loud and feel free to pray in your heart language. And then the first person who prayed in English, and then everybody just prayed in English. And then we did it again a couple of weeks later, and this person, she had been learning Spanish as a second language. And when she invited people to pray in their heart language, she started praying in Spanish. And then that paved the way for people to bring off their heart language. And we had prayers in various languages. So it was like a welcoming and invitation of that. So, but what I'd say is mainly in the worship and the prayers, we were open to multilingual ways. If people's English wasn't their first language, then there'd be possibility to read the sermon notes, for example, in their language. And then we also paid attention to what kind of bread was used in communion, so that it's also shows a diverse picture. So not just wafer or white bread, but we have used naan and chapati and other things too.